be in the video? You want to come talk to the people on the internet? Buffy? No. Hey, today, I know the title of the video is Chasing the White Pony Snare, and there is actually a free sample, snare sample at the end of this video, so you can grab that when you complete the video. There'll be a guide on how to... Sorry, the cat's being distracting. Do you want to come say hi? Do you want to come say hello to people? Oh. Hello. So, this is Buffy. Say hello. This is about OCD and going down the rabbit hole, and actually how to take the things that you done, that we learn and that we get obsessed about and focused on, and turn it into a creative device. And the way that I handled my tendency to get very in-depth about things and lose time. Basically, I've devised a number of steps that have allowed me to find a way to still go down the rabbit hole without it becoming destructive to my work output and actually my personal life. Because before now, it was really destructive, it was really distracting. But first, I need to lock up and get to the studio. So, I guess it's time to do that. In a bit. So here we are. I don't know if you can tell, but the studio is slowly coming together. I think it's quite nice. But we're not talking about that. That will be covered in a future video. We seem to be talking about OCD and then some eventual free snare sample that's at the end of this video, which sounds like this. So there's your bait. But hopefully this video ends up being something a bit more useful to you other than just like sticking around for a free sample. Let me get into it. Welcome, my name is George Lever and I'm a music producer here in the UK. I predominantly work within rock and metal, but a lot of the bands that I work with tend to blend and mold different genre combinations together, and that's how they get known. This channel is dedicated to the inner workings of the job, showing you what it's like going behind the glass and what the producers in a monologue might be considering whilst the act of making a record is ongoing, along with other bits and pieces. There's music, there's playthroughs, there's all sorts of bits and pieces that encompass my life here on this channel. So if you're interested and you find this video useful, please consider giving it a thumbs up and a subscription to the channel overall. But let's get into the crux of the video. How did I combat getting in rabbit holes all the time? Well, I refer to it as going down the rabbit hole. For some people it's OCD, it's just the process of getting focused on something to distraction, where even the satisfaction of finding out or the process of it is kind of just like this itch you have to scratch. Sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. I have a history of doing this. Cooking, got really obsessed with cooking for about 12 months, got really good at it, and then just stopped doing it. Photography, you're actually seeing the outcome of me becoming obsessed with cinematography, which is the extension of photography. Bethany, my wife, has kind of experienced every side of this super, what is it called? Super hyper focus. There's a pattern. Everything, guitars, mixing, post-production, everything I do and everything I apply myself to is a representation of how seriously I take my job, and also a representation of the level of care that I take. The issue is that I've not always been this in control of it. Years ago, it was running riot, and I noticed and I acknowledged that I had to get these tendencies under control. So I set out I devised a list of working practices to help me keep everything in track, and that's what I'm sharing with you here today. Now it's gotten to a point that it's so ingrained that I just do it naturally, but before I had to just methodically work through it, kind of like learning how to drive a car. You have to learn the process of this, then that, then this, then that. And then after a while, it just becomes a function. So the first step in this journey is I had to turn it into a tool. I had to take this ultimately negative thing and find a way to make it into a very positive thing. So the first step was acknowledge the problem. Write it down, write the thing down. Actualizing what it was that I wanted to achieve, what you want to achieve, is the biggest step. Before learning this stage, before getting to this point, I would go around in circles. It would encompass my brain completely. I would go to sleep thinking about it, and I wouldn't get anywhere. I wouldn't have a point of reference, and I'd lose confidence in myself. The next step after that was to understand how big a task this was in general. If it's a large task, I have to break it down into smaller, achievable segments so that I can understand what the incremental step-by-step process to resolving it is. So it's check your landscape, check yourself. What's the headline? I think we all believe we're capable of doing a lot in one go, and we may very well be. However, there's always a cost. Energy, time, ability. Each time we deep dive, go down the rabbit hole, it costs us something in return. So it's not wise to go balls to the wall each time. Smaller chunks mean more good, more soon. Yeah. And the most key part that I found was that if I dedicated time specifically to being selfish, so specifically to the task, and I allotted an amount of time each day just to focus on it, it enabled me freedom to focus on things that had to get done that day. So if I knew that I had an hour to just get on with it, or 2 hours, whatever, I would save all the energy for that moment in time, and it would then stop it being this sort of, I don't know, this granulated approach over a whole working day. How this would work is I would allot that time, and then I would write down what the one problem is that I would like to solve within that time. If I solved it in less than the time that was allotted, I'd still stop. I would wait. It's the thing accomplished. I wouldn't get on to the next thing because I don't know whether I'd have enough time in order to break down into the next step. These notes, these allotted times, then get put into a diary or a way of cataloguing the steps that I've taken. And then when I have more selfish time available, I would then review, repeat until it was as close to accomplished as possible. Job done. In the occasion or situation that I didn't have the answer, I was unable to resolve a step. For example, when I did the deep dive on understanding impulse responses, I made a video about that on the URM channel. It's somewhere up here in a card or in a link in the description down below. That video was about trying to understand why all impulse responses aren't created equal, because they're not. There's multiple ways of approaching the same thing, which then ends up with a lot of disparity in results, and whether they're usable with all rigs, all software, or all load amps. Load amps? Load boxes, because these small minutiae changes affect things to a greater extent than I wanted to care about. That video covers everything. So if you're curious, save that link. But let's keep going with that train of thought. In order to resolve that step, what I did and what I do is I will just go and find someone that is more experienced than I am, and I'll ask them or pay them for their time. The reason for this is because it's not my fault that I don't know everything, but it's more than likely possible to find or have access to someone that does know more than me. Pretty straightforward. That's what it says on the tin. And then the last step is just be consistent. If you get distracted, get dragged away, you hit pause, life happens. But acknowledge that you need to come back to it at some point so that you can shore everything away. Just bear in mind, it takes almost 60 days of consistency to build a new habit that sticks. It takes a while, which is why breaking it into smaller steps makes it a lot easier. What's the takeaway here? Oh, my chair is so squeaky. Going down rabbit holes or deep diving or getting obsessed about something is not unhealthy. It's only unhealthy if it becomes the only thing that you do. Having the ability to acknowledge the problem, break the task into individual subjects and subtasks, dedicating time to it and being consistent seems to be a very surefire way or foolproof way of resolving these internal crises of focusing. building a habit around it turns something that's inherently negative into a tool that you can decide to turn on and off. Is there anything that I would change about how I learned it or how long it took me to learn it? It's a process. This process in itself is adaptable. It's possible to change it, improve upon it, and refine it. If I could break it down to 3 steps, I probably would like to do that, but at the moment, we're at 4, and that's okay. So, how do you deal with your tendencies of getting focused or deep diving, rabbit holing? I don't want to call it OCD because it's not an obsessive compulsive disorder, it's just pure, intense enthusiasm, I suppose. Deep diving is not a bad thing, but how do you have a handle on it? Do you have a handle on it? You may not. Maybe this can help you. Let me know. Leave a comment down below if you have your own tactics that maybe I should consider applying and implementing into my routine. But until then, don't forget to check that video out on the impulse responses, and doesn't my room look really nice now? And don't be a dick. Oh, almost forgot. Snare sample, the one that sounds like this. Yeah, it's in the link down below. Enjoy. Take care. Bye.